Okay, we're live.
Good morning. It's 9 o'clock. I'll call the meeting to order. Was the meeting properly noticed?
Yes, it was.
Clerk will take roll.
All members present.
Okay. We have the agenda before us. So I have a motion to approve. Supervisor Gabarsky, second by Supervisor Taylor. Any discussion or questions? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed signify by saying nay. Agenda is approved. We have the minutes from May 17th and June 10th.
So moved.
Motion by Supervisor Rick P, second by Supervisor Gabarsky. Any discussion or questions? What?
Scott.
Oh, Scott? Oh, okay. Sorry.
That's okay.
Didn't see, I thought I saw Rick's mouth.
That is Rick. Oh, no, Rick.
According to Jerry.
Something happened earlier.
Boy, that's cold.
No, something started earlier.
Okay, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed signify by saying nay. Minutes are approved. Public participation as we go forward on items. Any correspondence?
No.
Okay. So start then with the treasurer's report.
Is there any questions on the report? And I see we're getting a little bit more increase on interest rates. They are starting to climb a little bit, which is a positive for us.
Supervisor Rick Pease.
Have we started anything with PMA?
That's, I asked to put that on the agenda because I know I was gonna bring it back, and part of the discussion was on that past to bring it back to see how much you'd like us to work with.
Okay.
Sure. Yes. Supervisor Gabarsky.
Jenny, you, everything sorted out with Bank One or whatever they're calling it now?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, they sort of a half misunderstanding type thing. They thought we were pulling all our accounts, all the general and the daily. So they were truly concerned about it, and I re-explained that this was the quotation marks, extra money. It wasn't dealing with any of our everyday product, monies that we had that would stay there. So everybody's better now.
Okay, thanks.
Gave them a little heart attack, but no, they're all good.
Agenda. Okay, so moving on, then we'll move on to the discussing that on the PMA investment options.
I don't know if Kyle's on it, you want to talk, but I know you had stated when you passed the resolution for that, that you would like to discuss further here at the committee on how much you would like us to play with, I guess is how you want to do it. So I'm bringing it back to you.
Word that?
You had kind of said 4 to 5 million maybe, and we're gonna look at it. So we have, those bottom 3 are our extra accounts, the top ones, and we've been managing from year to year to use those accounts without taking out of those 3 bottom ones. So that's kind of all the amounts that I have out there. So if you would like to discuss on how much, because it will take time for the transfers and all that stuff. So, and we're ready to go with the final PMA setup. I just would need your input and let us know what you want us to do.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, go ahead. Kyle.
Yep. And I'd like to also add that the 2 at the top of Jani's report,
The solid waste.
the solid waste ones, that is money that typically we've had sit in a CD. And we've done like 2-year CDs in the past, and we really can't touch that money because it's meant for long-term care of the landfill post-closure, and it's meant for closure of the landfill. And the DNR calculates how much money we're supposed to have there, and they use the interest rate that we're getting to kind of calculate the present value of what's supposed to be in those accounts. So those two, we were also thinking of switching over to PMA to maximize rates.
Supervisor repeat.
So Kyle, that'd be something like when he talked, for, longer term CD, we would want to invest something like that to get the best interest rate then?
Yeah,
Is there any idea how long that closure is gonna be? Does anybody even have a guess at all on this?
yeah. So I believe the closure monies we are able to draw from when we do cap a cell. I believe we have done that in the past. We haven't actually taken out of that in the last 5 to 10 years, I believe. At least since I've been here, we haven't actually taken money out of that closure account. Long-term care one, we really can't touch at all because that's meant for mowing the landfill when it's closed, that type of stuff. I mean, monitoring, I think like leachate levels, that type of stuff. But the closure one, we are able to withdraw funds from periodically when we close a cell. But I don't believe that there's any plans to cap any cells because anytime soon because of the vertical expansion that's happening at the landfill.
Sure. Supervisor Brand.
Kyle, does DNR have a lien on those accounts? In other words, if we didn't live up to our obligation, are they able to tap into that source? And if so, would that have an impact on what we can and can't do?
I mean, I don't think they have like a lien on the funds. It's more of us guaranteeing that we have the funds available to close the landfill and care for it post closure. So as for the DNR taking those funds from us, I don't know, but it seems unlikely that they would be able to do that. They could force us to use the funds potentially, but I'm not positive on that.
Okay.
Yeah, Supervisor.
So right now, those two funds are sitting in CDs and we need to wait till that time is up. How long is that for those?
They came up earlier and they're actually in a money market account right now.
Oh, so they're
So
good
we're
to go
okay
then.
with that to move it as we need it.
So Lyanna, could you go down to the bottom again? So what you're saying right now, we have possibly those two funds up on top and approximately $15 million from the bottom if we choose to invest that, correct?
Correct. I was.
Do we have a
looking at the top
recommendation
of the-
from Cynthia to how much we should or should not do?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
what I recommend today is perhaps setting a maximum threshold for us to be able to move funds. And then leave the discretion up to us. We've already identified, I'm gonna say 5 accounts, right? That's what I'm looking at, 5 accounts, right, Kyle? That are current money market accounts.
Yeah, there's 5 money market accounts. I think Janie was looking for basically just the Bank of the Dells to move that. And then potentially those solid waste funds. So we don't want to.
We are currently updating our fiscal policy. And we'd like to rely on what was communicated today to kind of drive that policy, which will also be presented later for approval. So if we can just get us, I guess, a maximum threshold of amount of money that can transfer at any time. Perhaps that, so if we can do, I would say let's say 5 million, but let's say 5 million is the max, well, then we can just start with certain accounts that fall within that 5 million, which again is the Bank of Wisconsin Dells, which I think is the interest here. And, the ones that have more than 5 million, maybe we just keep doing 5 million increments as needed. That's an internal control then, because I think that was expressed at a meeting, an earlier meeting about having, internal controls. So if we do set a threshold, today's decision will be helpful in forming that in an official fiscal policy.
I'm kind of confused with you. When you mean 5 million, you mean 5 million a day or just 5 million over the account
5 million per transaction,
per transaction?
transaction limit.
But that wouldn't stop you guys from doing 5 million in one transaction, turn around and do the next 5 million, correct?
So, Mr. Chair, if we set a threshold, you can also do a daily, you can do a weekly, you can do a monthly, however, whatever control you want, that's the input we're looking for. I believe the treasurer had maybe a comment or a question before we.
My concern, if that's okay, I'd like to separate that, the solid waste that's their money. The general account is our bottom numbers. If you're gonna do, say, a set 5 million, you're taking up, if you're including all of the CDs or all of the money markets together, that already eats up 3.5 up at the top, and then your general money's going to one at the one transaction. I can consider a separation, and solid waste is their own transaction, and then the general account's the different.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Or perhaps we don't set a threshold and the extra form of internal control is that I would have final sign off on a transaction. So you've got 3 levels. You'll have the treasurer who has identified a potential transfer, a benefit situation for the county to make additional funds. Then the next step is the finance director, who then, fiscally will look at it to make sure, does it fall into the right categories? And then I'm the final sign off. That's 3 layers right there.
And Mr. Chair,
Yes.
Janie will also have these on her monthly reports as well, showing like what funds are with PMA. So admin and finance have those reports.
Supervisor Zaborski.
Thank you. I'm still apprehensive, to say the least. So I think the threshold limit, maybe not threshold, but a limit needs to be capped and not per transaction. I mean, if we're going to, it's still a risk, whether it's minute or, somewhere in the median, somewhere. I'd like to see a cap on it. I'd rather walk before I run, so.
Mr. Chair? So I believe part of the discussion too, as far as internal controls, was to do steps. So as Supervisor Grabarski mentioned, setting a threshold of 5 million to do a test, over a period of time. How is it performing? What's the risk? Wow, we really did realize a benefit. Now maybe the next step is we can move it up to 10 million. And then the per transaction, that's just an internal control. You wouldn't want to be able to move 50 million. I believe that was the number that was thrown out last time, was you wouldn't want to be able to move 50 million in one single transaction. You need to have controls. So having a threshold like that, just the 5 million, is just an internal control. I believe that the treasurer is going to be bringing things. She'll probably mention, hey, the CD's coming up, we're thinking about this, and then communicate that.
Supervisor Scott Pease.
I'm with Bob. I'd rather see like a 5 million for 6 months, cap it at that, and how many transactions you want to make during that time under the 5 million. That's what I'd like to see. That's my thought.
Right now, I think it's our prerogative, so, and it's on there, so we can discuss them direct and the PMA investment. And we just need to put a motion forward and
I'm with Bob and Scott. I'm thinking 5 million, come back in 6 months report where we currently sit. And when it comes to the solid waste, I would rather send that to their committee and see what they think they would like to do. And then once they approve what they would like to do, then we have it come back to us. I think that would be the best way to handle the solid waste stuff. But I would think a 5 million, let's see how it performs over a 6 month period, and then we could go on from there. That's where I'm at.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Okay, so recently we talked about vouchers not being at committee levels because that is an internal function, approving vouchers. Another internal function is also investments. And if we start turning those kind of things over to the committees, that's getting into crossing a line of maybe micromanaging your operations here. So perhaps keeping it in admin finance for now, and then do a threshold, and we can have a certain amount of time to see, you know, is it performing as promised? And if so, then perhaps we look at maybe investing more or opening up that threshold somewhat.
Just to follow up
Yeah.
on Rick's point, at least that needs to be communicated to that committee, I would think. I mean, that's just being transparent.
Mr. Chair?
Mhm.
So to address that, if they are given financials, and part of the financial reporting is the cash balance. So they are able to see, and we will have a category called investments P&A. So it'll stick out. It won't just be cash and investments. It'll actually have investments, and then perhaps P&A is one of the accounts. So that's how the committees will know where their funds are.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I would definitely like to see Kyle come to the solid waste meeting and explain the whole process to him, because none of those people on the solid waste committee, other than myself, have ever heard of what's going on here yet. They're not on the admin of finance, they're not listening. I think a report should be made to
An
them
education maybe on those accounts that they have.
and an explanation of what's going on for sure.
I guess my concern about that too would be, even Strong's Prairie has some interest in, especially the second account, that once it's closed, there's enough money to make sure it's maintained. And I would think they'd want to know what we're doing with that also.
I guess the question still out there is, the committee wants to act on a threshold or a dollar amount that we're comfortable bringing the PMA, I guess we need a motion to move on that, so.
I'll make a motion that, I guess the treasurer is allowed to move up to not to exceed the $5 million threshold for the next 6 months.
Okay, you have that motion.
I'll second.
Second, discussion on the motion. Yes,
Is it separating from solid waste or including?
That is separating from solid waste.
I'll second
okay. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
it. Aye.
Those opposed, signify by saying nay. Motion is approved.
I just got, asked Jeannie, that's farmers and merchant bank, it says farmers.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, okay,
Typo.
just a typo.
I don't know how long that's been there.
Probably the last time we looked at it too.
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
if I would ask that we put the solid waste stuff back on once that committee is informed, and then we can make kind of more of better informed decision on solid waste.
okay.
Okay.
Okay. Hopefully, Kyle, you can find some time in the next month or two to work with solid waste. Maybe.
We'll get it on the next agenda, I believe.
Then we'll go on to the IT director's report.
Morning, everybody. Have any questions on this month's report?
How's the recording going?
Meeting recordings,
Yes.
seem to be going good. We've got occasionally people kind of delayed start on recording, but it's a new process, so. You know, live and learn type deal, but otherwise, they have been notifying us like they're supposed to, so it's going well.
Okay, good. Super, Scott,
Is the signage and TVs or whatever, is that all completed for the courthouse edition?
Yes. Yeah, there might, Cynthia might have something more to say, but the signage TVs were put up, I think it's a week or so, a week plus ago. They came in with those up.
Okay, thank you.
thanks, Rich.
Thank you.
We'll move on to HR report.
Does anybody have any questions?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I do have a question. Can you keep going down, Leon? To the last page. Administrative clerk for Health and Human Services. What is that position? There was some questions. I had a phone call from somebody that said that is to cover vacations and people that are sick or whatever. But wouldn't we just hire a floater like we did here in the courthouse if that was the case? Or why is this going to be a full-time position?
This already was a full-time position. It is not just to cover vacation floaters. Corey was actually in this position. There is 3 currently, and they do administrative support for the whole HHS building. So they're the ones that when you first come in, that's who you see.
That somebody made a phone call to me and said that that's what that was really used for, and I was wondering why we hired somebody full-time for that.
Sure.
Super, Scott, please.
Couldn't we eliminate one of those positions, seeing as we got more people working from home?
Actually, the HHS director did try to look at basically eliminating the position. She's looking at other alternatives and have to that. So we want to fill this position and look at a separate possibility for that.
Thank you.
Can I ask another question?
Yes, yes.
Cynthia, you're still vetting everything that comes through, correct? Making sure that those positions are necessary to you?
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
So the process does start in HR, then also your finance director is involved to make sure stuff's within budget. So that's the process, but if there's a position or a change in pay, that's where my signature comes in. So certainly.
But not in just openings, that's not required. Administrator, the county administrator just can sign off on it. I guess that's your question, right?
Right, that's my question. Like, is that position really needed? You know what I'm saying? I'm sorry.
Michelle said shaking her head up and down that that is.
Cynthia is signing off on it, and then we
Okay.
actually have Kyle sign off on it as well.
Okay.
There's a lot of paper going through her desk.
And Mr. Chair?
Yes.
And also there are certain committees that I'll just sort of elect to be part of the hiring process as well, the decision.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Just one more from me. I just wanted to make everybody aware that I am on vacation next week. So I will not be in the office.
Okay. Then we'll move on to the corporate counsel's report.
Good morning, everyone. I've now been in this position for 5 months, feeling a lot more comfortable. And I do want to thank all the county employees and also the county board supervisors. Everyone's been very helpful, very cooperative. It's made this transition very easy. Had a very busy June. And I do just want to point out a couple of things on my report. The tax foreclosures, that hearing was held on Monday. We did get default judgment on all the properties, so now we are in the process of selling those properties. Also, in regards to the Leola Assessor's plat, this is one that I've taken over from Bond Reasons, and it was my understanding that basically all I needed to do was to draft this declaration of easement and also put in a maintenance agreement, which I'd done, and I had sent over to one of the property owners as an attorney, so I sent it over to the attorney for the review. Never received a response on it. I sent emails, I've left phone calls for this attorney. I've not had a response. I've also went out to the property, looked at it, so I got a better understanding of what's going on out in that property, and I pulled out the files and I dug in a little deeper, did some of my investigations into this matter. The individual, one of the property owners who does have the attorney, has a lawsuit against one of his neighbors out there. And there's a status hearing on that in October. So what I plan on doing now is putting this back on to the property committee at the next meeting. I'll ask it to be placed on the agenda. I've got some ideas on how I want to handle this matter, but I need to run it by the committee and get their input and their directions on how we should proceed from there. So I'm hoping come August, we'll have a better idea where we want to go with this. There's also another matter under the planning and zoning ordinance, the Have a Heart Amanda Payne zoning violation. This is a matter which is being handled by Bond Reason. A couple months back, I attended one of the hearings because the attorney for Bond Reason couldn't be there. It was just a summary judgment hearing. But I had obtained, this was involving Amanda Payne, and I obtained more information at that hearing. So I asked that the summary judgment be put off, and I provided that information to Von Reason. And I received an email yesterday because this matter is coming up for the summary judgment hearing on July 18th. Amanda Payne is the property owner. I Have a Heart and is at the business that is owned by Lita Marshall. Amanda Payne now has filed an eviction notice for Have a Heart, which will be beneficial to the county because then that process goes through and the animals will be removed from the property, which is probably the better way to go. So the summary judgment hearing scheduled for July 18th will be taken off. We'll see how this eviction process works, which will be beneficial for the county. This was one of the matters I was going to take over, but as I got more involved in it, there was just so many different layers, as this other attorney already knows about, that I'd be playing too much catch up. So I'm just trying to keep in the loop as to what's going on. So I'm not going to personally take over this matter. Any other questions or any questions on anything else here?
Supervisor Scott, please.
The opioid settlement, is there a date on that? And when that money is received, can that be from past expenses from opioid for Health and Human Services, or is it all got to be spent after that a certain date?
I don't think we haven't received a specific date when money's coming. There's going to be money for this year coming through, but we're looking at, because it's spread out over so many years, do we want our money up front, take a cut in it? So we're still working on that. So we don't have any specific dates yet on when the money's coming in. As far as what it can be used on, I haven't looked specifically at it, other than I think it can be used for programs and stuff to help the problems that the opioid matter caused. So I think if there are some past issues, we could probably use it for that, but again, I'll have to look at that a little closely.
Thank you.
There's any other questions? We'll move on to the county clerk's report.
Any questions?
Supervisor, please.
I got a question. Why is it costing more for these new voting machines for the municipalities?
In regards to what?
It said that that they were incurring more costs because of the new voting.
Because they were all paper before, so a lot of them haven't had any cost, and there's a maintenance to the machine. And there's also a battery in the machines that the town would have to replace.
Okay, so they're taking care of that on their own.
That was what I asked.
Okay.
Seeing no other questions, we'll move on to the county manager's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning. On page 1, we start with the capital projects, and in there, as mentioned earlier, the wayfinding. This is the digital signs. They did officially arrive on June 29th, and Bill worked on that right away with installing it. And as a matter of fact, it's up right now. It's kind of neat. If you walk in, you can kind of see the meetings that are happening, and also there's like a welcome little screen too as well. And on page 2 of the report, halfway down, the county M, we still haven't heard anything yet. We are due to hear something in July, whether we got those grant funds, the BIL funding. Down a little bit lower, we have the county Z, and that project will run into late October. Haven't heard anything about that changing. And the ribbon cutting ceremony, which to me was a huge success, that was on Tuesday, June 28th. And we had great attendance. I mean, I did order 75 cupcakes and 30 of them were taken. So, I mean, it was a pretty good event. I was anticipating maybe more showing up, but that wasn't the case. But we did have good attendance. On page 4, I talk about the clean sweep. I also provided pictures of the lines because you just had to be there to realize just how busy it was. And those of us who volunteered that weekend, also there are those that were actually assigned to work that day. It was a great success. And I do mention in my comments that the community was very appreciative of this. They expressed to me that they didn't have to wait long in line, and they thought that this was a great event. And everybody was chipper. I mean, it was actually a nice day. And like I said, the time kind of flew by because it was extremely busy. And let's see,
Mr. Chair, can I address that?
Yes.
So, where was you at that day? You didn't have to wait in line. I'm just wondering.
so if you're coming in, I was that first turn to your right. I was like right there, the picture there.
Tavern was?
I was definitely out and about, that's for sure. My presence was known. I wasn't hiding. I didn't see you there.
You weren't looking.
I did see another supervisor though, that came through my section. All right, so we had, so the boardroom here, so the first step was to do the recordings, that's underway. The next part is the audio visual. There is an expense to this. I had said that the recording, there was no expense, but there is an expense related to the audio visual. I believe we have now locked it down to maybe one vendor. And what the plan is that we're gonna have a big screen here. Okay, we're hoping to do away with having to carry the laptops in here. Okay, you can bring your laptops if you want to scroll outside of the meeting. Let's say you want to open up a separate document, you can still bring your laptops. So it should be more convenient for you to attend future meetings. So we'll have a screen here. Meaning, we're gonna have a camera that's gonna show this front. We're gonna have a camera that shows the audience. And then we're gonna have 3 monitors, pretty big ones, one back here, one's gonna be on the side and one's gonna be in the back. So those of us who are up here, we can see what's being presented. So that's underway. I believe that cost was approaching 50,000, which is reasonable with what we were getting in quotes. So I talked to Rich about that yesterday. More to come on that. If we go to page 5. In the middle, I had mentioned that there's a board retreat on the horizon. I was originally thinking July 25th. That day is coming way too fast. There's just so much going on here. It's kind of hard. It's another ribbon cutting ceremony planning. There's stages that have to happen. And I believe this board retreat may be one of the first ones, if maybe the first one we've ever had here. So there's a lot to it. I'm now shooting for August to have this board retreat. And the board retreat is geared towards the county strategic plan. So communication will be going out. later this month about that. In the center of the page, I did attend the TID meeting, which are the TIFs, Tax Incremental Financing Districts. And I was provided reports. And if you look at the mandatory termination dates, you can see there's a couple coming up. There's one coming up here in 2022. And then one in 23. And so what does that mean to us, really? If they have a reserve, so they've collected increment on this TIF area, and there's reserve that was not utilized, that reserve then is now allocated back out to the taxing district. So we may see a lump of money coming with that as they close. But going forward, what happens when a tax district matures or terminates, it now becomes part of the levy. Okay, so it should have an impact on residents seeing a little bit less that they have to pay because now the increment is being realized. Okay. So I'll pass that on. That's a TIF accounting 101. And at the bottom, so we made mention about securitization, about the opioid settlement. And I did attend a WCA meeting. There were 3, I guess, events that were open. I sent out a communication to everyone about these things, and they were going to specifically talk about securitization, which I will touch on later because it is on the agenda. But so that's coming. Was there any questions on my report?
Supervisor Pease?
I actually have a question on last month's report. I was going through it and I don't know how I missed it, but there was a mention in one paragraph about adding security doors up here. Is that true? Why would we do that?
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
So that concern was raised by both the Corporation Council and Human Resources. So you feel comfortable maybe addressing that concern?
Certainly, I can. Throughout the day, we'll have people from the county get lost, find their way up here, and they can just walk through. And so they can walk right around to any one of our offices there. We have no way to do it. Our option is to keep our office doors closed and locked, which makes it pretty difficult throughout the day when you're moving around. Many times, because we'll be working and all of a sudden you look up and there'll be somebody right by your door and, you know, asking questions, and we don't know that they're there. So the plan is we're going to put a door outside here so they cannot just get into our hallway by our doors. It will be a locked door where you'll need a key to get in and such. So, well, not key, but cards. So, but it's just to prevent people from being able to walk right up to our doors, you know, the general public without us knowing.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
So with these 2 areas, you can imagine that the information that is going on, they could be on a phone call with the door open. They could also have people within their offices. This stuff needs to be confidential. It's an area that's, you know, we definitely want to have internal controls to keep the general public from being able to just kind of, I mean, if somebody just hung out in the hallway, just next to a door, you can overhear a conversation easily that way. So it's just part of internal control. It's part of creating security here, which has been going on throughout this whole building. And Bill is actually going to work on this. So it's not an outside contractor going to come in. Bill and his team are actually going to put this together.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Yes.
On my report, I talked about the webinar on the First Amendment auditors. What that is, you have people from the public coming in with cameras, videotape, and they can go to any public area in here and they videotape, they record it. A lot of them are just basically looking for confrontation for us to say, get out of here. Well, we can't do that. So if we have these security doors, it will prevent them from coming up, maybe not walking into our office, but being right next there outside, listening to it and videotaping. So it's another, again, security reason.
Supervisor Scott, please.
I think we're wasting our money. We have security down front to screen everybody coming in. You got locks on their doors. I think it's just a waste of money. That's my personal opinion.
I agree with that. I watched that video that happened up in Wisconsin Rapids, and those people are going around. We're not going through any closed doors. So if you're worried about that, all you have to do is close the door to the office. And as Scott said, we have plenty of security downstairs. We just spent a lot of money to put security down there. So anybody coming into this building is been vetted. They shouldn't be a problem.
Supervisor Kubarski?
Yeah, I have more of a question. If they come through here and they can actually access that door to the stairway. Once they get in the stairwell, when they get to the bottom, they can't get back out. I mean, that, if you come back up here, I suppose they could access this hallway again, I'm not sure. But down below, they can't go through where your offices are. And the other access is going out through those doors that they're not supposed to go out. So I don't know if this would prevent them from that happening. I don't know if it ever has happened, but I certainly would question it.
You get down to land and water, right? All the way down there.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I believe there was an incident where someone got through our security downstairs and they were unescorted. They were borderline irate. And this is somebody who approached the HR office and had to be escorted by one of the, I believe it's Tabitha, like escorted him back to the court area. So it's disruptions, it's potential, I mean, even though weapons and stuff are being secured, someone's physical being irate is still somewhat of a threat. Did you want, I think Michelle wanted to say something.
I'll speak to that. That wasn't the first time in the last couple of months since getting through security either. That was just one instance. The other instance was an agitated individual, which later on, 5-10 minutes later, was escorted by the police out. I think most offices in this building now have a door in between the actual office, personal office. There's a doorway. If you look at the treasurer's office, there's a doorway. If you look at the DA's office, the child support office, our offices, I think the only ones wouldn't be like maintenance, but our office is pretty much the only ones that do not have that actual additional door for people to just come through.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
So we're talking about putting a door out here. We have a door over there. The only thing between that door and this door is this room that's locked. So why couldn't that door be locked to keep them from coming in and have Bob access?
That door needs to be open, for example, for like meetings today, the public's welcome, so we couldn't lock that door.
But that's when you have something going on. And what you're talking about is where things aren't going on. It's just out and about. Is that correct?
Actually, it could be today, for example, anybody could walk through there and walk to our office now.
Yeah.
So we can't lock that door.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
This was one of the questions I had asked when we were trying to figure out what to do about this area. And it seems to me that there was some reason why we could not consider that door being under, to be locked. It was not just about meetings. I think there was more to it. And Bill, are you in the meeting?
Does that have something to do with like fire exits and that kind of stuff? I mean, that has to be, if somebody's in the middle, which way do they go? Possibly.
Mr. Chair? Yes.
Maybe, maybe I should have brought it up here. Maybe we could just give that to the building committee to take a look at. And then, what? I'm just saying, I mean, it's not gonna be decided here. It's really belong to your property or building. And I just happened to notice it. I never, when I looked through it, I somehow glanced through it the other day. So I'd be amendable if they would just answer to the building committee.
Okay. Very good. One of those. Supervisor Kubarski. They can discuss it there. so.
Yeah.
Okay, okay. Any other questions then? Seeing none, then we'll move on to the project status report.
Yep, so I spoke with Mike last month, June 22nd, it looks like, about the airport projects. Pretty much all those are tied together with the land acquisition. So land acquisition being the major portion of the project, and then they're gonna reconstruct the runways, update the airport layout plan, and clear runway approaches. Pretty much the whole project's handled by the Bureau of Aeronautics, and then they turn around and bill us for our cost share of that. And we put the approximate dollar amounts on there for what the final cost of the county is going to be. I mean, the estimated cost is the total project cost estimate, but we're not paying for all of that. It's going to be small portions of it. Yeah. Were there any other questions on the project status report?
Any questions? No? Okay. Then we'll move on to the ARPA work group monthly report.
Yep. So you can see we're starting to spend some of those ARPA funds that were authorized. Scroll down a little bit more. About $400,000 has been spent so far of the almost $4 million that we were allocated. I think I mentioned last month that we did receive the second tranche of money. So we have that all sitting in a separate fund away from other funds, so we can properly account for the ARPA monies. Then right down there, there's those two that were brought forward and were denied. So we just want to make sure that those are shown on there, so that way the public knows that we're not just blanketly approving everything. Any questions at all?
Mr. Chair,
Yeah.
Cal, do you want to touch on the status of what's going on with the fiber optics?
Oh, yep. I just got an email yesterday. Okay. So initially, town of Adams, the east side of the town of Adams, they were looking at July to August to actually start groundbreaking. That's actually not going to happen until late fall of this year is what they're saying. And west side of town of Adams and town of Quincy, they're anticipating to begin spring of 2023. Fiber drops and customer connections are anticipated to begin in the summer and continue in the fall of 2023 for those areas.
Yes, Supervisor Reese.
Would you just mentioned a possible $50,000 cost for this room here? Would the ARPA funds be able to cover that, saying it's for the public and it probably kind of stems through COVID that we should use that type of stuff to inform our public, or is that not a necessary need in the ARPA fund?
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
So this is a question that was presented to me just yesterday when I saw the bill, could we use ARPA funds? So my next question was, well, what's in the IT budget for capital projects? And there's adequate funding in the IT budget.
Okay.
So it's already been accounted for. And this is equipment and doesn't have to go any further as far as getting approvals. And ARPA would just delay it, going through the ARPA and then the next step. So it's already accounted for in the budget.
That's fine, thank you.
Seeing no other questions, we'll move on to new voucher process, approval process.
Yep. So, yeah, in the past, we've just had, there's been committees that have been approving their, like, all the vouchers or checks for departments. We're just not gonna have that going forward because we do have the fiscal policies. I think it was talked about 2 years ago, but it still ended up continuing. Yeah, it just kind of giving an update on that. So going forward.
You just need to address that in some certain departments that are still doing it, right?
Yeah, the county clerk actually sent out an email the other day, letting them know that they don't need to have voucher approvals on their agendas anymore. Because I mean, they're already paid by the time the committees are seeing those.
Yes, so please.
Could we remind the people that make the agendas that they should take that voucher question off then? We ran into that yesterday a little bit, like, yes and J.
Yeah, that was a timing issue.
Okay.
I think Lyanna sent out an email earlier this week, like Monday or Tuesday.
Then we'll go on to the resolution for voting machines. Election equipment.
Yep, so this is for utilizing the ARPA funds. This was brought to the ARPA work group and I believe it passed unanimously. It's just additional voting machines. I think Lyanna could probably go into more detail on the need for the townships. The estimated cost is just under $85,000. Lyanna, do you want to touch on what these are and what the need is for the municipalities?
So yeah, the bid was originally attached, yeah, that's 84,720. And then we had municipalities reach out to us and ask if they could order more. And then we know that it's something that can be run through ARPA, so we reached out to all the municipalities and asked them in regards to the general election, what would they need to be able to run, you know, using the voting machine. And then we just got the numbers from them, what they felt would be sufficient. And we've heard positive, you know, feedback from every town, letting us know that they really did help. We're having a shortage of poll workers these days, so they don't have a lot of people that want to come in and count at 8 o'clock or 10 o'clock. So they have been very happy with them. And we even had the town of Rome that is going to try to implement using the express votes, which is a positive because they've been using paper ballots. Any questions?
Supervisor Scott, please.
Do you do it based on the number of people in there? So I mean, they couldn't like we need 20 of them.
No, we did it on how many voters they have, and each machine can handle 250 voters.
Okay, thank you.
Supervisor Rick, please.
I'll make a motion to approve this resolution.
Motion by Supervisor Rigby, second by Supervisor Taylor. Any discussion or question? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed signify by saying nay. Is approved, and we'll move on to county board then. So next item is a tax assessment program.
Yep, so this one is also utilization of ARPA funds. Scroll back up, Lana, sorry. So this is an upgrade to the GCS tax software system. The implementation cost is just over $23,000, and there's an additional $8,000 for an increased annual fee. The ongoing annual fee is going to be budgeted for accordingly with the IT department, but that increase for this year, we're requesting for ARPA funds to be utilized as well. So the total is going to be just over $31,000 of ARPA funds. Janny, are you still on? And could you explain a little more?
He's here.
Okay.
We have to do an upgrade. Our program will cease and desist eventually here in the next year or so. This has been a couple of years already in the making of them showing and processing from, it used to be GCS, is now called LandNAV. It's going to go to a complete web-based program. So it'll utilize attachments to the municipalities along with our program. It won't be all separate, 21 separate things. So right now, if a municipality posts a payment, we have to wait until we get all the transfers in February. When this new system, and it won't get implemented until next spring, based on the timing and stuff. When they do their stuff, everybody's gonna see the payment instantly. We won't have banks calling, saying, hey, I don't see my payment. We won't get second payments due to that. They don't see that one's paid and they didn't think it's gonna be, it is a great program. We did a Zoom meeting and they showed it to us last Friday and we're really excited about it, but it isn't something, it's a choice. We have to do it. We looked at a couple other programs and the costs were similar, or they wanted to do a 10-year contract at a lower rate and it just didn't pan out. So that's what this is asking.
So the additional $8,000 to cover the increased annual fee that will be tacked on every year.
No, just a one time. I mean, we will have 8,000 increase for the annual program, but the first time around, they requested to include it for the one time and then in the budget. In the regular budget.
Is this what all of you treasurers are gonna have to be using? Or is this what you choose that you want?
This is the program where it's about 50-50 in the state. Some have their own, larger ones have their own internal computer gurus that make their programs. There's one other company that does pretty much the other half, and that's the one that wanted the 10-year contract with a little bit lower rate, but no guarantees either.
It's amazing that the state would just kind of hodgepodge it around instead of just making their own program for each county.
It's been very, yeah, there's extreme limitations. There's no options out there because every state does their tax programming differently, have their own laws. So it's limited.
Yeah, thanks. Jenny, I'm still confused about this increase on the $8,000 for this year increase. Why would that? Why is that allowed to happen? I mean, this was already paid. The fee was already paid prior at a lesser rate, and now because of this program, they're going to increase it $8,000.
Not, and it won't be charged until the programming is turned on and transferred. We thought it was going to be this year. It won't be till next spring. So, we won't need the monies right now. It's just for when the project actually gets transferred into.
But it's because of this program.
Yeah, the cost of this program, say now our budget is 22,000 a year for the program. When the new program gets pulled in and it's all the changes, it's going to be close to 30,000 a year for the program. And that's, they had included the extra 8,000 first time because it wasn't expected for a budget.
And the annual maintenance fee is normally
Yeah,
percentage
that's normal.
of the installation cost. They have to have recurring revenue. The maintenance. All IT programs are like that. That's good for me.
I guess I'll make the motion to authorize the upgrade, because I think we need it, as she so noted. I don't like the increased cost either, but we noticed yesterday, 9% in inflation, this is the way the world's going, so yeah, I'll make that motion. No, I don't need all that in the motion, just.
Motion to approve the resolution and send forward to county board.
I'll say.
Thank you, Commissioner Ray. Discussion. Rich, now.
The cost per year, he says gonna be around 30,000. You talked to that there's gonna be a 10-year from this other company. Could this go up yearly, seeing as we're using this company, or are we getting locked into a certain rate?
No guarantees on any of that stuff. If it's any consolation, when we first initiated this, where we were gonna go on, so like I said, it's been 2 years into their process. Initially, that installation transfer cost was 35,000 by itself. So throughout the times that they're actually doing the stuff and they changed their programming and based it more on, say, the size of the counties, instead of us paying all the same, they kind of split it up. So now the transfer cost dropped that much to the 20, 23, 24. So it's better than it was a year ago. And I think they really worked hard with that.
How many years have you had this system?
We've had the GCS system since 2002.
And it hasn't went up every, you said it went down,
Oh, the initial transfer costs, the new programming, no, it's generally has gone up over the years. It includes planning and zoning and real property listing portions. It's all included in that. It's not just the tax program. That's everything.
thank you.
Seeing no further questions, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, signify by saying nay. Resolution is approved, and we'll move on to county board. Item. Preliminary decision on opioid securitization.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Okay, so we made mention about the opioid settlement and also this option of securitization. The interest has been really strong on part of Wisconsin counties looking to receive that money up front. So originally, we're talking about the payments coming in over a span of 18 years. So there's major interest now in counties getting this money up front. I did send out a communication about this in pretty good detail, I hope, about what securitization is. So, and the procedure is to just receive the settlement payments up front instead of receiving the payments over the 18 years. The procedure lowers the risk of distributors going insolvent. So there is always the risk of that happening. So even though we get a settlement, the distributors could go insolvent. And so this, I guess, combats that. You get your money up front and then you don't have to worry about the insolvency going forward. And the document has been put together by PMA, so I mentioned that also in the report that I sent to everyone. And so I did get the report, and Kyle, do you have, can you bring up that report?
Yep, I just need to be made a co-host.
So hopefully you were able to attend one of the meetings regarding the securitization offered through WCA. It was on June 28th, June 29th, and July 11th. I did attend one, but now I wish I would have attended maybe the last one, because I think a lot of Q&A happened during the process, and then so the last meeting, then they addressed all the Q&A, but I wasn't able to go to the last meeting, but I got the gist of it. So here's the report as it impacts Adams County. The section there to the left, I wish I had a pointer. So if you look at the the 610, you see that number?
Mhm.
Whenever an investment company is looking at an option, whether to take the payout over the 18-year or to do a one-time lump sum payment up front, they have to do a present value analysis. And so with present value, it just allows investors to judge whether or not the price they pay for an investment is appropriate. So the number to the left of that yellow, so you see the 610, the number to the left, the 734, that's what we anticipate getting. They have to present value that. So in that process, it went down 124,000. Now, if we scoot over to the right of their report here, this is consideration of doing securitization, which means getting the money up front. And if it keeps scrolling to the right, I'm trying to get the number in that yellow box. Oh, I guess.
Oh, yeah, I'm all the way there.
I'm blind. All right, anyway. Yeah, I got the picture there. So in that yellow column there, we see the 550 or the 547,696 number. That is the present value number. So if you compare present value before the 610 over there to the left and the 547 to the right, that's a difference of $62,000. And please remember that this present value, this is just an estimate, so it's based on market averages. So it's not going to be precise until we're ready to launch it. What I'm seeking today, there's a deadline coming up, because in the report that or the narrative I sent that everyone, I said that the deadline has yet to be set. However, there's a preliminary deadline, which is where they're just trying to get a preliminary indication from us by July 22nd as to whether or not we're interested in securitization. It's not a commitment. The commitment will come down the road once the county decides to actually proceed with securitization. So what they're seeking now, when I say they, I'm talking about the attorneys, the EMA and city and WCA, they need to know what group they're working with as far as securitization. I can tell you that the majority, if not all, everyone is interested in pursuing securitization. So that's what today is for. Just I need a preliminary indication from us regarding the interest in securitization.
Very direct piece.
I think securitization is the way to go here. I'd rather have the money in hand in lieu of what the big pharma, many of them went bankrupt. And I know they put money aside for this, but we better get our hand out first. That's where I would go with this. Thank you.
Supervisor Kubarski?
Yeah, what is the present value, what is the discount rate? Do you happen to know?
Trying to see if they indicated that there. Can you scroll to the bottom?
So you're suggesting it's 90%?
No, so you can see examples all over the place. It could be 12%. I don't know the exact percentage they're using, but we can rely on this. So WCA communicated that they thought that this was a fair representation of what to expect. That was the communication that went out.
Well, I guess
Not sure about the discount rate.
I guess my point would be, if they're using a discount rate of the lesser interest, which is, today's value. If the interest rate continues to increase, then the difference between what it was and what the net will be is the net will lessen, I would guess.
Right.
So, but I agree with Rick that at least to show the interest, and Cynthia said it's not a commitment, I'd certainly be in favor.
And Mr. Chair, just an additional comment, whenever we're doing a present value analysis, despite what the discount rate might be, it's just an estimate to give you an idea about the value of that money is all. It's not absolute, it's just to give you an idea so that they can go, do we keep it now or do we look out in the future? Okay, let's look at that. And so present value is just a process. It's not absolute. And the discount rate, whether it's high or low, it's just, those are based on market averages.
Yeah, and being on the WCA board, we've talked about this a lot, and I mean, every county can make its own decision about the 71 counties in Wisconsin, so. So I mean, we don't have to do it, and everybody can take, but like it's been brought up, is that you're never guaranteed that you're gonna get that money if somebody goes out of business and files bankruptcy, so.
Is this it, or is there more payments after this?
this is the first phase. This is only like the manufacturers, there's still have the distributors, and so, I mean, yeah. And you know, and one of the things that, as you talk about this, I mean, Wisconsin is one of the only counties that, or only states that the counties went after this money. The other ones, it's been the states doing it, and then the money has to funnel through the states, and the county association said, we don't want to have it like the tobacco fund, because the tobacco fund went into the state, and the state did whether they want, the counties never saw any money, so. Counties Association really took hold of this, so then the money's gonna come back to the county, so we can utilize it where we need to for those programs and helping offset those future costs that we're gonna have, or past costs that we have, so.
Is a motion in order for this?
Yeah, you want, yeah, do you?
Um,
I mean, when it comes forward, there's gonna have to be a resolution by the county board to be formalized and sent in, I think, right? That's what I understand.
Mr. Chair, what I'm looking for today is just a preliminary indication, whatever that means. So if it's, I
I think a motion, so you have it on record that you have that approval, so.
Well, I would make the motion that this committee approves the options superior, whatever the hell that is.
Securitization,
Yes, that's what I meant to say.
okay. For the open funds, okay.
I'll second.
Okay. Motion by Supervisor Barkey, second by Supervisor Scott Pease. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed signify by saying nay. Upcoming agenda items, if there's things in the future, we'll have those as needed. Next meeting date,
Mr. Chair.
yeah,
Regarding upcoming agenda items, I didn't know where to bring this up, and Kyle's report kind of jarred my memory a little bit. Talks about the airport, the land acquisition, and on the building committee, we have talked about acquiring land for future use. The question's been brought up about who is responsible for, or what committee is responsible for land acquisition. And where the airport apparently took it upon themselves somehow that this came to be. And I went through the board rules, and from what I gathered, I don't think it's really addressed for any particular committee. So what I read, I don't think it's clear. So I'm thinking maybe at next meeting, we should either clarify that or bring it so we could add it to the agenda for the board.
okay. Okay, Corp Council will look at it. Yeah, we'll have that as an item on the next month's agenda. And then if we need to take it to the board, we can take it there. We have clarified. So next meeting date? How does August 5th work?
I don't know, how does it work for you?
It works good for me. That's why I brought it up. I'm open on that day right now. I think. It looks that way anyway.
That's fine with me.
Barring a storm.
Yes. 9 o'clock. Otherwise, I'd entertain a motion for a quick recess and before we go into. Okay, motion for recess by Supervisor Rigby, second by Scott P. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Okay, we'll come back at 20 after. How's that sound? What?
Closed session.
Oh.
Okay, I'll declare the meeting adjourned. Thank you and have a good day. Bob, don't call me next week. I'm going to be calling.
Going back to Canada?
No, up to Minnesota first.